Welcome to our podcast where we look for opportunities in our lives to see a beautiful view. I'm Paul.
And I'm Candy. Thank you for joining us again today.
And a big thank you to all of our patrons who are supporting this podcast through our Patreon channel. We really appreciate your donations, which help us cover our production costs.
We want to give a big shout out to our newest patron, Janet.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you so much for your support. When you join our Patreon like Janet did, we will send you a beautiful view sticker. We'll give you a shout out on the show. And every Monday morning, you'll receive a weekly newsletter with insider information and encouragement for your week.
Memberships are only $5 a month. You can find the link in our show notes. Also, if you are a business owner, then we would love to talk with you about becoming a sponsor of the Beautiful View podcast. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, send us an email at beautifulviewpod@gmail.com.
We are so excited to share with you again today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, float on down a winding river, travel back in time and face our future too. I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hands I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere, as long as you're going to. Well, I'd go anywhere, as long as I'm with you.
In today's episode, we are going to be talking about a few of our favorite things.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most frequent questions we get about our years of full-time RV travel. People ask, what was your favorite experience you had on the road? Or what was the favorite place that you visited?
We definitely have some favorite places and experiences from our 6.5 years of travel. And we also have some favorite gadgets and gizmos that we couldn't do without on our travels. In today's episode, we're going to tell you all about those things.
Yeah, there are some places and experiences that we all agree are our favorites. And then I think we each probably have our own special memories too.
We definitely checked off some of our bucket list items along the way.
We did. And we also discovered some of our favorite things to keep on board in the RV, many of which have now transferred back into the house.
RV living definitely requires that you evaluate everything for its onboard worthiness. If it doesn't get used, it doesn't get to stay. There's only so much storage space on an RV, and in theory, you're supposed to stick within the weight limits.
In theory.
In theory.
Let's start with some of our favorite places we have camped or visited over the years.
Okay.
What is your very favorite place we've ever camped?
Well, I loved the Utah desert. I really loved the more solitary places that we stayed.
Yeah.
Couple of different reasons for that. I think one of the main reasons, obviously, was to enjoy the silence. And when I say silence, like it's quiet enough that you notice the natural sounds around you rather than like highway noise or the noise.
Away from the hustle and bustle in the RV park kind of atmosphere and
sounds of other people's air conditioners or whatever. I mean, there's always something going on in a campground, which is fine.
So let's talk about that a little bit, about where we camped when we were in Utah.
Yeah, so we got out in the middle of the Utah desert. It was in public lands. It was on public lands. And so we drove down this highway toward Moab. And then
near Arches National Park. It was very close to
very close by to the national park. And somewhere along the way, along that highway on the left, you looked out for a railroad crossing and take this little dirt road, which we had to navigate very gently.
We did. There were a few little potholes and stuff.
And then you kind of go up and over a little ridge, and then you get into the valley there. And there are a few spots around where you can just pull up And
There were a couple of other RVs there when we first got there.
we
weren't completely on our own.
No, but we were separated enough that you couldn't really hear.
There was a lot of space between everyone.
A lot of space. So we were there in that little valley under the hills there, and just had this area to ourselves.
It was really cool. Dark skies. It was really amazing.
So the first thing was the silence, like where you could notice all of the desert sounds. That was really neat. So when the sun went down, obviously, like it got cooler and we could shut off our air conditioners and that kind of stuff. The other aspect of that trip or that place that we stayed that I really enjoyed was just the feeling of success over being able to live in the middle of the desert for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, without any hookups.
No hookups.
We solely ran on our generator, and we found a place that we could get water.
Which was a little bit of a drive. So I found eventually a faucet that we could use on the side of a gas station in Moab.
Yeah.
We found that through some blog somewhere that you could actually use that. And anyway, whichever way you went to get water, it was a good 15, 20-minute drive. So I made that part of my routine while we were there. We have an external tank that we take with us everywhere, which carries 25 gallons of water.
That's crucial when you're
absolutely
dry
crucial.
camping.
Some people have water bags that they take with them, which collapse down that can hold a lot more water.
Yeah.
But I have a solid tank that I put on the back of the truck, drive into a place, fill it up with water, and bring it back. So I that was like every couple of days we did that. But other than that, we were like on our own out there. It was great.
It was really cool. I think one of my favorites was a very similar experience to that, but it was in the Badlands of South Dakota.
Yep.
So in that one, I think that was kind of a similar deal, but there were a lot more people around. We were on a national grasslands just outside of Badlands National Park. And I don't know, we were probably 20 feet from the edge of the cliff or the drop off down into the Badlands.
We've been through that story before.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we have. But that was an amazing spot. Again, dark skies. We got to watch the Perseids meteor shower from that location. And
we met some nice people there.
We did. Yeah. And that was the first time that we realized that people had like kind of travel business cards or whatever. So we got given a little card for another traveling couple, and we were like, ooh, we need those. So we could exchange.
And we got them shortly
and
afterwards.
We did shortly after that. Yeah. Another one of our favorite places I think that we've camped was, we actually were there with friends, so that made it even more special, but we camped just outside the Grand Canyon. There are some forest roads where it's basically public lands where you can park up and camp, and it's legal to do so.
Yep.
Again, dry camping. And we found there were, 5 of our rigs that we fit into this one section right off of this forest road. And that was really cool. Again, it was beautiful. We were in a forest.
So it's like those places that you could get to where you're like, it just took it was a little bit of a challenge to get the RV set up and to actually live. I mean, it felt like camping.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're in a big camper, but it was really...
We were glamping.
Yeah, glamping. But I mean, there was a big camping element to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when I think about some of our favorite places that we've been and we've camped and we've experienced, most of our favorites were dry camping experiences.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think that's really interesting. Yeah. It wasn't the full hookup campgrounds.
No, it wasn't. And there we, again, used the 25-gallon tank. We would go to an RV park that was close by. They actually charged us for the water there, but it wasn't like terribly expensive. Yeah. So we would get the water from there and bring it back.
And some of our other favorite places, we love to stay at state parks, like all over the country.
Yes.
And when we first started traveling, that was mainly where we looked for, because they're usually a little bit more reasonably priced. You get a lot of nature. What were some of your favorite state parks that we stayed at?
So in Ohio, when we were staying at Camp Chautauqua and helping out at the youth camp, we would occasionally take a trip out and get some time away at Harrison Lake State Park, which was a really it was a big campground, lots of choices over where to set up your RV there.
Yep.
Obviously a big lake, which you could walk around, cycle around. That was always...
They had a dog area
Yes.
where it was specific for, it was like a part of the lake that was just for dogs, like a dog park where they could run off leash. So Tipper loved that.
She did. And it felt very peaceful. It was a good place to sort of collect your thoughts. And then... And so we would stay there for a week or two at a time.
And we actually met up with friends there a couple of times too, so that was really fun.
It was really great. I know with every state park that we went into, as soon as we got close to the state park and went through the entrance, it was always like where the dog would, start sniffing the air, and we'd wind down the window and she'd start looking out for critters and, we're at a state park. This is going to be fun.
It's like she could smell the state park part.
Yeah. No matter which state we were in, she always knew the state park. So that was pretty cool. She enjoyed every single one of them.
She did. Another one of my favorites was Crater of Diamonds State Park. That was the sites for number one were huge. Some of the best equipped. They were full hookups. They were beautiful, immaculate
better
sites.
than a lot of privately owned RV campgrounds.
And you still had like the space that you get a lot of times with a state park. So it felt very, you were in nature.
And spoiled at the same time.
Exactly. And the really cool thing about that was you could actually kind of dig for diamonds and that kind of stuff at Crater of Diamonds, and if you found one, you get to keep it.
So be honest, did you think we had any chance at all of actually finding one?
Not really, but of course I was hopeful, but it had just rained.
Yes.
Either before we got there or maybe as we were getting there, so it was really muddy. So that kind of made it, but I think, they said that actually kind of helps kind of turn
because it washes it over, and then so then you're walking out there and sort of expecting to see like a diamond just
something
glinting, sparkling right on the surface. You just go pick it up and well, we found a lot of really neat like rocks and stuff, but we didn't find. We had fun.
Yeah, we didn't find any diamonds, but I think just 2 or 3 weeks after we left there, a little girl found like a massive diamond.
Yep, she did. Yep.
And so it does happen.
It does happen, yeah. And of course, we can't ignore San Angelo State Park.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Which really was our first, sort of flavor of state parks.
Yeah.
Obviously, right in your hometown.
Yep. San Angelo, Texas.
Yep. But it had a bison herd there. So that was neat.
It was neat. And the monarchs migrate through there. There's a patch of pecan trees.
Yep.
And every year, I guess they're on the path as the monarchs migrate through to Mexico for the winter. And we just happened to be there at that point in time when it was incredibly magical. We're talking thousands and thousands of monarchs just everywhere. You could hear them flying around, their wings fluttering. I mean, it was just, you felt like you were in like fairy tale land.
Yeah, because the trees are not small, and they were absolutely loaded with butterflies.
Covered, yeah.
So that was amazing.
That was really neat.
And to find that like in the place where you grew up.
I know. I had no idea that it was there until we started
camping.
Never
seen it before.
Yeah, no.
Before we started camping.
Yeah.
But we would be there for long stretches of time.
Yeah, it was we kind of used that as our home base a little bit. It was in my hometown, so we were around family, but it also gave us our space, and and stuff too. So,
But we were only 5 minutes from Walmart. So.
right, exactly. Yeah. It's just on the edge of town.
Yep.
Yeah. I think another one of my favorite state parks is also in Texas, McKinney Falls in Austin.
Yes.
That one was really neat. We really enjoyed that. Lots of bluebonnets and in the springtime, and there's some little waterfalls. You can play in the water, and yeah, it was
And
really
that was
neat.
where we first met Brian and Joy and the kids.
Yeah,
And that was who we met up with in Harrison Lake in
in
Ohio.
Ohio. Yeah, twice.
Twice. So, yeah.
Small world.
Yeah, wonderful family. Love Brian and Joy. And, yeah.
Do you remember that state park that we stayed at in Indiana that had that really old amusement park that was shut down?
Yeah. And it was quite a walk from the park to get down to it. And they did a tour of the place while we were there, because they do tours like every weekend, I believe, during the summer.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was an old amusement park where people would come on a boat up the river, like your traditional riverboat boat with the paddle steamer. And they would come up and they would dock there. There was a hotel that didn't exist anymore. It was just, and you could walk around there, and they had kind of like a map that showed all the different, sections of the amusement park and what was there. So a lot of it was, there was just like a slab where there used to be, there was like a little tiny boating lake.
There was a pool that was like just you and Tyler got down in it and acted like you were swimming in it, but it was just empty. It was just a shell of a pool.
But it was, that park existed like back in the late 1800s, I want to say.
Something like that.
And it was very popular. But of course now it's just the remnants of it. But that was a very, very neat place to go. And
it was called Rose Island Amusement Park.
Rose Island.
And it's actually located in the Charleston State Park in Indiana.
Yes.
So it was just really, really, it was kind of like ghost townish, but it was an old amusement park. So
right.
It was kind of bizarre.
Didn't they, in the guide, they had like black and white photographs of the place in the day?
They did,
with the ladies in the big dresses. And it was...
I think it was, the history of it was it had like been fallen victim to like 100-year flood or something of the Ohio River. And it basically just... sat underwater, and a lot of the stuff, I don't know, I guess it damaged structures and stuff like that, and they just never did rebuild it or whatever. But it was interesting.
Oh, I loved it. We love to learn something along the way.
Yeah, especially if it's something kind of odd.
Yeah. Yeah, we like odd.
We do, maybe because we're odd.
We are very odd.
So another one of my favorite things was, and we weren't in the RV this time, we tent camped in Yellowstone National Park.
Yeah.
We actually, our RV was too big for the campground there, and it was kind of a last minute thought that we wanted to maybe jump across, because I think we left the rig in Montana at a state park.
Oh, we did, yeah.
That's where we were at, and we were like, oh my gosh, we're really close to Yellowstone. We should just go. So we were too late to get anything in any surrounding campgrounds or anything like that, but I was able to get a tent site in Yellowstone, and we always carried our tents with us in the RV. So
just
that's what we did.
Just for times like this.
That's what we did. We packed up the tents, and we tent camped in Yellowstone. So at night you could hear like the elk around and
calling
things walking
other.
Through the campground.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows what it was.
We don't want to know.
There's all of the trash cans are like bear proof, so there's no telling.
It was mostly raccoons, I think.
I think it probably was too, but it sounded big.
So we didn't. That's the one part of our trip to Yellowstone. We did all the major like tourist spots there, which were very touristy.
Yeah, they were.
So Old Faithful and there were just all the major spots there. We did that. We should go around on a loop road and kind of just like
hit everything.
Hit everything.
Yep.
But I know that there are a lot of people that know how to do Yellowstone properly. They know some of the hiking trails.
Yeah.
And they know where to go to find the really sort of peaceful, picturesque spots there.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely love to go with someone who
knew what they were doing.
Yeah, who knew their way around.
Yeah.
That would be really neat to go back and have a second try at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Some of the places that we didn't get to visit that I'm still to this day have it on my bucket list.
Okay.
You found a boondocking spot near the Grand Tetons.
Oh yeah.
And the pictures of that spot were amazing. We still don't know if we would have made it down that road with our rig.
Yeah.
But we were ready to try.
Yeah.
So one day we'll get to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
And I have always wanted to go and see Mount St. Helens. Mm-hmm. Both of those stops were supposed to happen when we went out west and ended up having to move inland to get out of the wildfires.
Yeah, that kind of...
So they'll stay on the bucket list, and one day
we'll
get back to it, probably in a smaller camper.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Ours is really big to get into places like that.
Yeah.
And it can be done sometimes, but
Yeah.
with a lot of careful maneuvers. But
Yeah, some risk involved.
yeah. So what's another favorite place?
So we talked about San Angelo State Park, like that was, real close to where you grew up,
Yeah.
like right in the middle of where you grew up, and you didn't know some of the things about that place.
Yeah.
But another place that we found out about, like after living there for years, we found out about the Fort Davis Mountains.
Yes.
Which was 2-3 hours outside of the Permian Basin, where we lived for a decade.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of local people that know about that park.
Yeah. Somehow we had just kind of like never really, until we started traveling, never really explored that area.
We didn't have an RV.
Yeah. No,
and
I know.
so we never had the method by which to stay there.
Yeah, and that was actually a really nice RV park too, because it was full hookups too. So
full hookups,
and you were down in the valley. Now you didn't have any internet or cell phone service down there. You had to go up to the top of the mountain to be able to get any kind of work or school done, which was kind of tricky. But
that whole area, the drive up there, because you're going up some elevation. The drive up there is gorgeous.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Once you're up in that elevation and you get into the state park, which is nestled between a couple of peaks up there. So it is in like a valley, but you're still up high.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the great thing, because in the Permian Basin, it's really hard to find somewhere cool. Mm-hmm. It's hot like all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
But with that elevation, it was
cooler.
It was a lot cooler, and that was like a really nice thing to find when you've got an RV in the middle of the Permian Basin. It's just nice to find some cool weather.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And we did one of my very favorite things while we were staying there. We went to the McDonald Observatory.
Yes.
And we did they have a star party.
Yep.
So you go after dark, and I think it was like a Tuesday night or something like that. And you go, and they kind of there's an amphitheater there, and everybody kind of sits around in the circle, and the guide is they're talking about the sky and pointing out stars, but the way that they point things out is they have this laser pointer.
Yeah. And
the skies are so dark out there because it's a dark sky area. Their laser pointer points all the way to the star. So you can see exactly where they're pointing.
It's really freaking cool.
It is really cool. And they have big telescopes set up. So that was the first time that we really got to look and see like Saturn with its rings. And
yeah, they have a local astronomy club, and those people come out there with their own telescopes, which some of them are big.
Oh, yeah.
And they come and set those up, and they have them pointed at different constellations, so you can walk around from one to the other, and they'll tell you about what the telescope is looking at. Just a lot of firsts.
Yeah, that was,
So-
I think, on that trip was also when we saw the International Space Station pass overhead
Yeah,
for the
we
first time. And
Yes.
I mean, now since then, like we spot it all the
So
time,
common.
but it's
Yeah.
so common. But that was the first
Yeah.
time we'd actually ever known what we were looking for. And
Yeah, the
that
space
was really cool.
the space station does 16 orbits a day, so it actually flies overhead 16 times a day.
Right. Yeah.
But of course, like you can only see it when it's dark. But I mean, if you want to go see it, it's very easy to see with the naked eye. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
can get the Sky Guide app on your phone, and you can use that to track the space station. You can track satellites that go overhead.
Find all the space junk.
Space junk, spent rocket boosters, that kind of stuff, and then it'll identify all the constellations. It's really neat to
Stars
take it
and-
with
yeah,
you
that's pretty fun.
when you next go out into the wild, which
Yeah.
we encourage you to do.
Yeah.
Make sure that that's on your bucket list. Gather your family together, get a tent from Walmart. They're cheap.
Borrow one from a friend.
Borrow one from a friend and go out there and enjoy the outside.
Yeah, that's pretty special.
And then there is our Winter Texan location.
Oh, yes. One of my favorite places, and has been one of my favorite places probably since high school.
Yep.
South Padre Island. So we spent 2 winters
Yep.
down at South Padre Island in the RV with, oh gosh, there were probably at any given time 40 to 50 other families, full-time families down there with us.
Yep.
So that also added to the experience, but it is
Kids
so
loved
beautiful down there. So you get up in the morning,
Yep.
go for a walk
On the beach.
on the beach,
Which
watch
is right
the
by the
dolphins.
park.
Watch the dolphins play in the bay.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And pick up seashells
Yep.
and just
Yeah,
it's really magical down there.
The kids always had other friends to play with during the day. So it's a county park, which is right on the southern tip of South Padre Island, Cameron County Park.
Yeah.
And the park itself is now the place to watch Starship launches.
Yes,
Which
SpaceX.
which happen at Boca Chica across the bay. So yeah, it's
Which we watched 2 launches
Yeah.
in person.
yeah,
That was pretty cool.
it was. When we first went there, I kind of knew about SpaceX, obviously. Knew that they were in Boca Chica.
Yeah.
Knew that was somewhere close to the border or somewhere around that area, but didn't really sort of start looking it up until we got close. In fact, I think we stayed at a park on the way there in Corpus Christi. And I think it was when we were in that park and I started looking up about it and I'm like, dang, we're going to be
Really close.
really close. And also didn't know at the time that you could just drive
Oh, yeah.
to the launch pad,
Yeah.
which is crazy, but
That
you
is
can
crazy.
drive right up through SpaceX
Yeah.
and
it's
see
really
it all
neat.
up close. So that was a great park. 600 or so sites.
Yeah. It's a large park, but
Yep.
I think it's our favorite because of all of the kind of the memories we made there, the
Yes.
campfires with friends and the friends that we made and
Yes.
movie nights
Oh,
and
yeah.
even holiday celebrations. The first year we were there, we celebrated Christmas there. So
Yep.
on Christmas Eve, we were down at the beach building sandcastles, which was so
Yep.
weird, but so fun.
And we had Thanksgiving there with
The next year, we had
Yeah.
Thanksgiving there, and
with all the other families and had like a potluck Thanksgiving,
yep,
which was great.
it was a lot of fun.
And a lot of food.
A lot of food. And we also participated in the South Padre Island Christmas parade that year. Our
We
full-time
did.
families group had our own little entry in the parade. It was
Yeah,
a lot
we
of
walked
fun.
the
The kids
parade.
loved it.
We waved to all the islanders that were gathered along the side of the strip there to see us, and it was very neat experience. And as you say, like your experience of Padre goes right back to high school. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the first places that we visited together.
It was, yeah.
So we have lots of memories of that place. So highly recommend the county park there. Isla Blanca County Park. It's really, really nice place to go.
And then I guess we can't forget probably one of our top places that we visited that we loved so much, we can't make ourselves leave. That would be Bellevue, Iowa.
Yeah, that was, we've told a story before of how we ended up staying here that first year. But really, we first started out at Offshore RV Park after visiting the state park here. And that was where we could rent a site month to month. Mm-hmm. So we stayed for a long time that first year. And then just over the next few years, we came back every year, got to know local people, got to know people at the campground. And
I think that's part of what did it for us. I think
it was
although this place is really beautiful, it's very beautiful. And each season has its own like spectacular beauty to it. So we did love that as well. But the people here are amazing. We met some of our just very, very best friends here. So that's a big part of what kept us here. We love the small town feel.
Yep.
We love all of the small town fun.
Yeah. And we're now getting to meet more people here in Bellevue that we hadn't met before because of Tyler starting school here.
Yeah.
And so now we're starting to make connections with some of the parents of his friends. Mm-hmm. And so that's opened up a whole new avenue of community here, which is fantastic. But when 2018, we first spent some time here. We came back every year. Mm-hmm. And every time it came time to leave this place, it became more difficult.
Yeah, it did. It was sad.
Very sad. And I think that's still the case today. Like occasionally we get to spend some time somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And every time we're away from Bellevue, initially it's like, oh, great, we're on the road again.
Yeah.
And then after like 2 or 3 weeks, we're like, yeah, I think we're starting to feel like we need to go back home. Mm-hmm. Which using that phrase says something.
Yeah. Especially when we were traveling, this always felt like when we got back to Bellevue, we just kind of breathed a big sigh of relief. It felt like we were home.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's bizarre because we've been to a lot of places all over the country.
We have.
Of all the places, this place feels the most like home. So that's why we made it our home. Yeah.
And before Bellevue, we would always sort of, just as a topic of conversation, we would talk about the place that we were at. And we would say, can you imagine living here? Is this somewhere that we could possibly live?
Yeah.
I know we talked about that with Fort Davis Mountains.
Yeah.
That first year we were there and we're like, this is a really beautiful area. I wonder if, there's like a cabin up here.
We talked about Ohio.
We talked about Utah.
Yeah,
which
we did.
Still to this day, Utah is like a really amazing place that, I could imagine living there.
Yeah.
Very diverse in the landscape there, from anything from desert to mountains and waterfalls and forests. And it's just a beautiful area.
Okay, so we've talked about some of our favorite places.
Yes.
How about some of our favorite experiences that we had on the road that aren't necessarily bound to a place, but they could be, I guess.
So there was the item that was on your bucket list for a long time. And you kept telling me, we need to do that. And, you obviously didn't say it loud enough because I missed it the first few times.
Had to wait till it was your idea.
Well, oh gosh, here we go. So, but we decided one year, you put your foot down and you said, we are going to the balloon fiesta.
In Albuquerque.
The Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta. And
Yes.
I'm like, okay. So my immediate thought all the time is like, so where are we camping? What are we doing? And you're like, okay, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because I think you knew more about it than I did.
Yeah, well, I kind of did, but I think the biggest draw to that was we'd already been on the road for about 4 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd kind of toyed around with joining this full-time families group.
Yes.
Being paid members, because up until then we were just kind of like outsiders, kind of
we
like
could
not
view
part
the
of the
stuff
membership.
We could view their posts on Facebook, but we weren't members.
We weren't members. So, but to go to this rally, they called it a full-time families rally around the Balloon Fiesta, you had to be members.
Right.
So we joined full-time families at that point, and I was hoping that would mean that we would get to meet a whole bunch of other families.
Which we did.
Which we did, a whole bunch of other families.
We knew that there was a specific part of the showgrounds there that was set aside for the full-time families.
Yes.
So we knew, okay, when we get there, there's definitely a spot for us.
And we knew it was dry camping. We knew there were no hookups.
We knew it was dry camping. So we get there and we enter this if you know the area there, this is just like a massive, massive parking lot area, showgrounds area kind of thing. There's hookups all around this huge space where you can spend a lot of money and stay in a parking lot.
In a parking lot, yeah.
And so we drive all through this and we're like, okay, you know, it was crowded, obviously, because this is a national event. So we drive through all of this, and then way back in the back corner, there's this fenced area next to a tiny cemetery. And we're like, okay. And we kind of knew how many rigs were going to be there. We knew how many
70 something spots.
So we drive in there, and they are like, they did a great job of getting us in, but we had inches to spare all around the rig between us and people behind and people next to us, because it was just enough space for everybody, just enough space.
Yep.
So we're all there, all with our generators in this tiny little parking lot by a cemetery. So from that perspective, I'm like, okay, this balloon fiesta better be good. Because this is like, I mean, the people were fun to be around, but actually like the actual space you're staying at during the time was kind of difficult.
Yeah, and I think it was probably more difficult for you because you were trying to work during the week while the rest of us were out kind of playing and exploring and doing all the things at the rally.
I wasn't the only one. There were other dads there who were working too.
Yeah.
But then it came time for the actual balloon fiesta itself. And my goodness. And I mean, we have photographs from that balloon fiesta that will take your breath away, like our RV with like hundreds of balloons floating over the top of it. It was something else.
And you and Emily got to actually crew for one of the balloons. That was really cool. So
yeah, which the first time we got to crew for them, we were basically doing what everybody else was doing. We were just helping to get the balloon set up, holding onto ropes while they filled the balloon, and then they released the balloons all at the same time. But then later on that week, they actually had, this was the balloon that we were crewing for was actually like narrower than the other balloons and built for like speed.
It was race. Yeah.
So there was this race challenge where the crews that had this type of balloon would drive away from, you had to be a certain distance away from the showground. And then the first person back to the showground would win. So you had to be very strategic about where you launched from, know which way the winds were blowing.
To end up back at
the showground, which actually in that particular race, no one ended up back there. But what that meant was we actually got to travel with the crew,
Right.
go out in their vehicles with the balloon and a trailer in the back, all folded up, find a place to launch from, which was a parking lot in the middle of this little, town area, and set up the balloon. Of course, like you immediately get a crowd around you. It just felt, and then you're chasing the balloon. Once it launches, you then chase it because you have to, in case it doesn't land back at the showground, you have to be there to be ready to receive the balloon and help to dismantle it.
Yeah,
So,
it was just the whole week was
Amazing.
just an amazing experience. Just in
Yeah.
that area, Albuquerque is known for what they call the box effect.
Yes.
It's the way that it's positioned between the mountains and the way the air flows and stuff. So the balloons go up high and it sends them one way, and
Yes.
then they lower their elevation and it'll send them right back, and it makes a box. So
they can come back to where they launched
they can
from.
come back to where they launch from. So that was really interesting to learn about as well. So
Which is hence why they have the balloon fiesta there, because it's
it's the
just
perfect spot
the
for it.
perfect conditions for it.
Yeah.
So that was an incredible experience, and of course we got to meet up with the Jordans there.
Yeah, they were our next door neighbor, our traveling family that we traveled with for several months during when the world kind of shut down in 2020. We kind of hung out together and stuff, but we met them there, and
The Smiths,
we met the Smiths there, who recently popped into Bellevue and
they
saw
stopped
us.
by
Well,
here and came and saw us, which
yeah.
was like really cool of them to come out here. And
it was super
see
cool.
where
It was
we
a
were
lot
at.
of fun to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a really cool experience. Another one of my favorite things that we experienced while we were on the road was getting to see the eclipse in totality, in the line of totality.
Yeah.
That was really special.
Fossil Rim National Park.
Yeah, and we ended up taking our tents in and camping at this little wildlife refuge area,
Yeah.
kind of backwoods area.
Yeah.
And then we drove into Fossil Rim, and there were a lot of people there, but there was plenty of space to kind of be, our family together and stuff. And
So it's a natural amphitheater, and when I say that, you might have in your mind like something that's sort of like maybe a small scale, like a slope. But this is like this huge amphitheater that is like a bowl in the landscape. And so your natural, like you basically park at the visitor center, which is right in the middle of that space. And then we wanted to walk out to one of the hills, and everybody was doing the same thing. They were going out in all directions from that parking lot and finding somewhere on the slopes around the outside. So we're waiting for the eclipse to start. And then as the eclipse is happening, you see the shadow start to fall across that land, because you can see for miles.
oh yeah. It was really something. And, once we hit totality, it was just like,
Yeah, you hear all the nighttime sounds.
Yeah.
But it's in the middle of the day.
it's,
And then all around that rim, you started hearing people cheering
yeah.
because it's just, there's an eclipse coming up.
Yes.
If-
Next April. That's a big one.
That's on our calendar. If you get a chance to
Be
drive
somewhere that's in totality, that is such a cool experience.
anywhere that you're at during the eclipse, even if it's cloudy and you don't actually get to see the eclipse itself, when it goes dark in the middle of the day, that is cool.
Yeah, it's really wild.
Yep.
The birds kind of don't know what to do with themselves. I remember that just
Flying
kind
in
of
all
like,
directions.
yeah,
trying to
the
figure out-
wildlife all kind of went weird.
Yeah, it's really an amazing experience. You have to do it once in your lifetime.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Okay, so let's move on to our favorite things that we had with us on our travels, things that made the cut.
Yeah, so there's one thing in particular that we didn't actually start with, but it was kind of like, we'd heard several RVers kind of carried one on board,
Yep.
and they were kind of expensive, so you were kind of slow to the convincing
Yes.
of, but then at some point you kind of jumped on board, and so we purchased a Berkey
Right.
water filter.
Which we have recommended to lots of people since.
Yes. And, There are people that love Berkeys and there are people that don't, but whatever. That's going to be like that with everything. But for us, being able to, when you're in different places all the time, your tap water is always going to be different according to different places.
Questionable over the purity of what water you're getting. So that's why when we first started out, we would just buy bottled water all the time, which was terrible.
It was. We were going through so many bottles. And not only is that not cost effective, it's also just wasteful. It's so much plastic.
Extremely wasteful.
So we bought this Berkey and we started filtering our water through that. And I was just amazed that it didn't matter where we were, where we got our water from.
Yep.
Our drinking water, always tasted the same.
Yeah, it just works.
It works.
It's gravity fed. It's not highly technical. It's 2 tubes, one on top of the other.
Yep.
You fill the top section with unfiltered water. There are different versions of filters that you can get. Ours is ceramic. And over a period of a few hours, it drips through and fills up the bottom section with filtered water.
Yep.
And then you take it from there and drink it.
Yeah.
And it's usually fantastic.
Yeah. I think we've only ever had maybe one time that it kind of
didn't quite work all the way.
Didn't quite. The water was really, really bad.
Really bad. But that became a cost saver in the long term, although it was expensive to buy, saving on buying water bottles. I mean, so it was a cost saver and just very convenient for us.
Yeah. And so with that, we each got ourselves like a reusable water bottle.
Yep. That
was another thing that was crucial to us, for everybody to have their own water bottle that they could refill whenever they needed to.
Yep.
And that was
some water
great
flavors. If we wanted
the
that.
Little squirty water flavors.
Yeah, that was a great thing to purchase, and I mean it's also, we use it in the house.
Oh yeah,
it's just a great thing to have, no matter whether you're RVing or not. That's just a great thing to have around. So we talked about before how we had left behind our ice cream maker, and realized that was one of the things that we shouldn't have put in storage.
Yeah, we really enjoyed having that with us. So the ice cream maker got to ride along, and we used it pretty frequently in the summertime.
Yep, we did. Another thing, I love to cook on a charcoal grill, which is not the most practical thing to take with you when you're traveling and RVing.
Yeah, it's really not.
So we just got one of the small, tiny little portable
kettle grills. Is that what they call them?
Like
just a little tiny
kettle
one.
grill, and that thing was amazing. Still is amazing. You just put
cook on it.
Still cook on it, because you just put in a small amount of charcoal, and like half the time, if you're cooking 6 burgers or a package of hot dogs or whatever, you don't want to
perfect size. Right?
Yeah, you don't want to fire up a huge grill for that.
Right.
So that was great. Other people had other preferences. The Blackstone grill is a very popular choice. They're kind of, I mean, they vary in size, but they do take up some space. I like charcoal. That's just what I like to do. Yep. So that was another thing that, again, we still use it today.
And one of the things that we learned to use, because in the RV, our oven is obviously it's not full size. It's not super efficient. So we discovered that we could cook a lot of things that we could cook in an oven, in a Dutch oven.
Yes.
So we carried a Dutch oven with us, and we figured out how to place so many coals underneath and so many coals on top to get it at a certain temperature so that we could basically bake anything that you would bake in an oven in the Dutch oven. So that was...
And there's a lot of technique to it. Like, you can look up how many coals to put on top and bottom to simulate a certain oven temperature. So that was a really great thing to use. And it's actually a skill that Tyler uses today. He's about to go to his fall camporee with his troop here, his scout troop here in Bellevue this coming weekend, and they cook in Dutch ovens all the time.
Another thing that we always tried to have with us And I mean, I don't know if it falls in like the favorite things, but it was a necessity thing, was paper goods, because as many times as we dry camped, like you can't always do dishes.
No,
so sometimes
don't want to waste water.
Yeah. So we would always try to keep a supply of paper goods and that kind of thing for those instances, and also for the occasional potluck that would pop up, at a campground where you meet people or you're joining friends or whatever. Then you've got some kind of dinnerware to use that isn't a hassle.
Yes. One of the things that we found necessary when on the road, because we couldn't always rely on like really good internet, especially not to stream anything.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we actually joined was Redbox DVD rentals.
Yeah.
Because there's a Redbox machine most places.
Yeah,
at least there was. There was back then. And so we could have DVD players on the RV, which even at that time were outdated, but we could go and rent a movie. We could take it with us and drop it off at another Redbox along the way.
That was perfect.
So that worked out really well.
We had our family movie night.
We had our family movie nights. We had our own collection of DVDs. That was something that made the cut. We took our DVDs with us so that we always had something to watch. The kids loved to do that. They would microwave their popcorn and sit and watch a DVD movie.
Yep. Yeah,
so I think we even did that in the middle of the desert out there. Like
we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it didn't take much to run any of that.
No. So it was a fun way to spend an evening in the Utah desert.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the things that we had that were kind of like necessity things. We've already mentioned a little bit about the water tank and stuff, but we also we have a generator on board.
Yeah, which was a major purchase, but it was essential.
Yes, and that has come in handy so many times.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We couldn't do without it.
Yeah. We have a Blue Boy, which is basically a portable waste tank. So that when you are dry camping, you can, or when you don't have full hookups, you can empty your waste tanks and take them to a dump station.
Tow it behind the truck to a dump station.
Yeah. So that was super crucial.
Which we were very kindly given at some point. Because there was a family that was going on to become camp hosts and they didn't need it anymore. So they just gave it to us.
Yeah. They were going to be in a full hookup spot in Florida, and
they didn't need it.
They didn't want to take it with them, so they gifted it to us. It was so nice.
Still use it today.
Yep.
Not for the house, though.
No.
For the RV.
For the RV.
We still have it on the back of the RV, so
we
when
have
we go
actual
out for a
plumbing
trip,
in the house.
We have actual plumbing in the house. I don't want you to get any impressions of our little, house here in Bellevue.
Another thing that we had on board that was also kind of a big purchase, but was a lifesaver when we were full time, was we have a washer dryer combo unit.
Yes.
And it is vented to the outside of the RV. Yep. So that was one of our very first major purchases as well. And it was a little terrifying when we had to cut a hole in the side of the RV to install it.
A 4-inch hole.
A 4-inch hole
for the side.
For the pipe, the vent pipe. But that little thing has just been, actually, when we moved into the house here, we didn't have a regular washer and dryer yet. So we moved the little combo unit into the house and used that for several months before we saved up to get the washer and dryer. So
yeah, I think that those, like, obviously there was the RV in the truck at first, and everything we needed to hook the two up together. But the first two major purchases we made were the generator and that washer-dryer combo. Our first trip out, away from San Angelo, after we got the RV, was actually to go to Lubbock to get that washer-dryer.
Yeah.
So, but that was absolutely essential. And it takes some maintenance.
It does,
but we've got to figure that out, and how to.
And there are families that do without a washer and dryer, and they just hit laundromats and stuff.
Yeah, but
I'm not really a laundromat kind of person
either. No, I don't want to sit there for hours watching.
Not to mention all of the quarters that you have to kind of collect.
I mean, it is a way to go.
It is, but for us, it was just we just kept it running pretty much all the time, and it worked great.
Yeah, and then we had our indoor-outdoor thermometer. So, which was critical to try and figure out how to keep the RV cool.
Yes.
So, you know, you can have we have it on the house now, but you could see the outside temperature and the inside temperature and kind of gauge, you know, like how your ACs are performing from that, which usually we can get it 20 degrees cooler on the inside of the RV than the outside.
Right. Yeah.
So, and we found that was pretty much a rule. And we did a lot of work on our ACs, a ton of work on our ACs to make them better. And it did improve things, but that generally was the rule.
Yeah.
So 100-degree weather in an RV is not really all that comfortable.
It's not, which is why we always went north in the
we would do the north-south
summertime.
thing. It's
It just
kind
is-
of essential, unless you can find a campground where you're under trees. That really helps as well.
The trees make a big difference.
Huge difference.
In an RV, when you live in an RV, you can't really be a collector of things.
No.
Like that's not which is hard because when you go to all of these fabulous places, you want to take a souvenir. Like that's always like you go somewhere important, you want a souvenir to take with you. Well, you can only have so many t-shirts or so many souvenirs. So what we started doing pretty early on was collecting magnets.
Yeah.
And that ended up being one of my very favorite things when we went to somewhere special was to collect a magnet. So our refrigerator in our RV is absolutely covered in magnets from places that we've been, from fun experiences, from, just souvenir magnets. So it's fun to stand in front of that and just go back and kind of look through all of those magnets and see all the various places.
For us, a favorite thing to do now is to go out into the RV, sit on the little couch opposite our refrigerator and look at each individual magnet and kind of go over all the memories that
reminisce.
Oh, yeah. And that was a great thing to do. The kids would collect the stamped pennies.
Oh, yeah.
From different places.
Got their little stamp penny collections, and we got them little booklets for those to put those in.
And Tyler would have his pins for Junior Ranger badges that he would keep on his hat. So we always had something to remember the things that we did, but they couldn't take up any space.
Yeah, they had to be very, very minimal because we just didn't have the space for them or couldn't allow any weight, really.
One of the things that I really enjoy, one of the improvements that we made on the RV was the very simple addition of quick connectors for all the hoses.
Oh, yeah.
Because when we first started out with the RV, we would have to get the one hose and transfer it, screw it into wherever it needed to be in order to flush a certain tank or fill the fresh water or whatever we had to do.
Yeah.
And that just got to be too much for the fittings that are on that side of the RV. So everything on an RV, this is an exaggeration, but everything on an RV costs $500 and is made out of the cheapest plastic you can possibly imagine. Yeah. So everything breaks really easily.
Yeah.
So the constant threading in a hose on a connector just doesn't work very well. So quick releases, and I buy them by the bag. Yeah. Because they have a limited lifespan.
Yeah, especially on the occasion that you accidentally leave one on something.
Happens often. But that really was a way we simplified all of that process.
Yeah, that was a huge improvement.
Valves and quick connects. So that was and a very cheap addition. $3 or $4 per pair of connectors. So not bad at all.
One of my favorite things in our RV is our fireplace.
Yes.
It didn't come with a fireplace.
No,
a lot of RVs do, but ours did not. But it had the perfect space below where the TV was in the little galley area. It was just cabinets before.
Yeah.
So we took the cabinet out and modified it slightly. And one year for Christmas, you bought me a fireplace. Yeah. It's just an electric fireplace. And it's really nice because our heater system all runs on propane.
Right.
So, obviously that can get expensive if it's really cold outside or whatever, and you're constantly running through propane. So this was kind of nice because when we were at an RV park, your electric is normally included.
It's all included.
So we can just run the little electric fireplace in the living room.
Which put out some heat.
It did put out some heat, especially in that middle part of even into the bunk room. If they left the door open, if the kids left the door open, it would warm that up too. So
yeah, it's one of those fireplaces with the glass front and the fake logs on the inside and the flame effect lamps in there. So it actually adds a lot
makes it cozy.
It adds a lot to the general
atmosphere,
aesthetic.
Right? Aesthetic.
The aesthetic
Emily's favorite word.
Of the RV it's really cool. The only member of our family now who doesn't like it is our little golden retriever, Gracie, who is convinced that there is a golden retriever trapped behind the glass, because whenever she looks in there, she can see that golden retriever barking at her.
Yeah, she gets really excited.
So I'm thinking that our listeners need to see that little video on our social media.
Oh yeah, that would be a fun one to share. We'll have to share that one.
Yeah, that was something that I ended up on the worst end of when I thought it was very amusing to watch her and film her barking at herself. You'll have to watch the video.
Yeah.
You'll have a good laugh.
I think by the time we got to the end of our travels, we kind of had landed on the things that were really important to us and the different reasons that they were important and the reasons that they were kind of our favorite things and that they got to stay on board with us.
Yeah, because the things that ended up like being a part of our everyday lives while we were living in the RV were there for a reason. We evaluated everything on board, and if it didn't work out to be valuable to us, we put it in storage or got rid of it. And then there were things that we purchased along the way because we were like, we've got to keep this going because this is like something we use all the time.
Right.
And so that's something that we've carried into back into bricks and sticks living back. Now we have a house here in Bellevue is, we have space to put things, but really having kind of things that you don't use very often or things that just are really like they're cool to have, but they're not useful to us. It just seems like wasteful in some way.
Yeah.
So we really don't, we still evaluate the things that we have around us.
Yeah.
It's not that we're minimalist in any way. Like there are people that live the minimalist lifestyle.
Yeah.
We're not that way.
Practicalists. I like the practical things.
Yeah. So we keep things around us that we definitely find useful.
Or that make us happy.
Yeah.
Make life a little more beautiful. We could literally talk all day about our favorite places and things, but I think the thing that makes many of these experiences our favorites are one of three reasons. Number one, we got to experience something really special or unique. Or number two, we got to experience a piece of history. Or number three, the people we got to have the experiences with.
I would agree. We got to see places and experience things that many people don't even know exist. We love discovering new aspects of God's creation and treasure the friendships we made along the way.
Definitely. I know that some of our favorite places and experiences are just that, are our favorites because of who we got to experience them with.
Yeah.
Whether it was spending quality time together, just our family, whether we were spending time with extended family, or when we were meeting up with old friends or making new friends on the road, the people we were with often made the experiences the most special and memorable.
Yes, our full-time traveling tribe is a very tight-knit group, and we're spread out across the country. So it's not unusual for someone to drop their plans and meet up with someone who's close by.
Yeah.
And we've been blessed, as we mentioned before, to have several of our traveling friends stop by here in Bellevue to visit with us.
We have.
And it's always so much fun to pick up where we left off and really easy to do as well.
Yeah, those friendships just come so easily. We mentioned earlier that the Smiths had stopped by here, but earlier in the summer, the Atchison family stopped by, and we got to celebrate a birthday with them, and just a really sweet, special time together with another family. So
yeah, to find out what they've been doing since we last saw them.
Yeah, there's always something to talk about.
There is.
There's not much that is more beautiful than exploring God's creation, soaking up the beauty and creativity, and experiencing nature in its truest form. Maybe the only thing that holds slightly more beauty than that are the beautiful people that God has placed along our paths. Mm-hmm. Our family, our friends who've become family, and even the occasional random meeting along the way.
It truly is a beautiful thing. We're just so thankful for these experiences. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let your friends know about it. Visit the Beautiful View podcast on Facebook or Instagram, share our posts, or share the link to our podcast. In our next episode, we are going to talk about my favorite subject, food, eats and treats.
Yeah, we are really big foodies. So we're going to share some of our favorite foods that we love to cook, foods we discovered on the road in various different places, how we cooked in the RV for 6.5 years when we were full-time RVers, what holiday meals looked like on the road, and how we've kind of adapted these things back into our now bricks and sticks house.
Yes. The music for the podcast is generously provided by the Hopeful Few. You can hear their latest EP titled Searching on Spotify or Apple Music. Links again are in the show notes. And for anyone who'll be close to Bellevue, Iowa on Saturday afternoon, October 21st, please join us as we raise a glass and sing along with Tyler and
You're
Kelsey.
Gonna sing?
Well, I don't know. Maybe not.
Okay.
I know that might clear the place out if I start singing.
It'll be fun anyway.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be fun. If everybody sings, then I'll sing as well. How about that?
Okay. So everybody sing along.
So they will be playing live at our favorite River Ridge Brewing, and we just can't wait.
It's going to be fun.
It is going to be a blast.
If you have any questions you would like us to answer or suggestions for things you would like us to talk about in our future podcasts, just simply email us at beautifulviewpod@gmail.com.
Just a reminder, please consider joining the Beautiful View Patreon channel. This will really help us keep these episodes coming. The link is in our show notes, and it's also on our social media accounts.
We hope you have a great day, and remember to always keep an eye open for opportunities in life to see a beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, float on down a winding river, travel back in time and face our future too. Oh, I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hands I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere as long as you're going too. And I'd go anywhere as long as I'm with you. Yeah, I'd go